Michael.
Madam President, I'm humbled by this opportunity to stand here in the highest body in our land to pay tribute to our national hero, the father of our nation, the Right Honourable Dr. Sir VC Bird Sr. Firstly, on behalf of the entire Michael family, I'd like to extend our sincere condolences to Lady Lydia Bird and the entire Bird family at the passing of Sophia Cornwall Bird Sr. Madam President, much has been said about the life and role of VC Bird Sr. over the past week. Many members of government in both houses would have served with VC Bird over adults during the last 25 years in his office. We have heard anecdotes and personal testimony of their experiences with VC Bird Sr. However, I'm not so fortunate. For while VC Bird Sr. was a personal friend of my late grandfather, Asot Michael, and my father, and while I visited him in my father's company as a little boy many times, and he visited our home at Dryhill, my recollection of VC Bird Sr. is based on a review of his accomplishments in the context of the time of his leadership. Today, I would like to focus on just one element of VC Bird, his leadership qualities and approach in the economic management of our beloved country. My first memory of VC Bird Sr., as I've said, was as a friend of my father. I remember VC Bird making the point that while the white colonialists despised Syrians and Lebanese, calling them yellow weeds, VC Bird made them his friends. VC Bird understood very clearly the value of linking up every social group in creating a solid front to fight the colonial rulers. This was therefore the first lesson that I learned from VC Bird. That lesson is one should understand what is the big issue at hand, and one should subjugate lesser issues and other differences in the interest of forming a formidable united front to defeat the major threat. Madam President, this simple but profound lesson is not one that all of us have learned, much less mastered. So often we forget about the big picture and we nitpick about lesser issues, about smaller things, diluting our efforts and weakening our capacity to conquer. Madam President, Sir VC Bird Sr. understood the need for everyone to conquer colonial domination, and he succeeded. Today, as we aspire to create new economic opportunities, we have an opportunity to apply the VC Bird principle. Will we, like VC Bird, remember the big picture, or will we splinter our efforts by focusing on subordinate issues? Madam President, from listening to my colleagues and friends, I understood and appreciated another quality of Sir VC Bird. That is patience, born not only from tolerance and genuine appreciation of a different point of view, but also from an acute sense of tactical awareness. VC Bird was steadfast in his objectives, but he knew when to be aggressive and when to attack. VC Bird also knew when to retreat and wait for another day. As a general supremo of social struggle, and a victor in hundreds of social battles, we have a large stock of knowledge gained from VC Bird. His experiences, which should become mandatory for all politicians, trade unionists, social scientists, and senior government officials. Madam President, when other regional leaders took on the USA, the great USA, head on in the 70s when radicalism was sweeping the Caribbean, VC Bird understood the need for a different approach, a more subtle approach that ensured Antigua and Barbuda avoided the trauma which were inflicted by the USA on these economies. Madam President, in all his struggles, VC Bird never got caught up in VC Bird himself. He was never haughty, never boastful, never felt the need to dominate by the crude use of power just for the sake of power and proving that he was the big boss. There was always a point to VC Bird's power play. VC Bird instead used his intellectual capacity and political power to fashion a better country, a better lifestyle for his people, for all his people. Madam President, you might recall a period in the 60s and 70s when the official view was that import substitution was the way to develop. This was the period when intellectuals frowned at the thought that services could be the basis for any economy. VC Bird tried import substitution. He started the Industrial Board, where the cornmeal factory, the sweet oil factory was started. He established the PDO. VC Bird was not hog-tied to no economic philosophy, since he recognized that these were not ends in themselves, but rather the means through which his people's life could be improved. Quickly, VC Bird recognized that this mode of import substitution did not have the dynamic potential to develop his country. VC Bird therefore switched to an open market model of private investment. Private investment being the driving force in the sector that was internationally competitive. VC Bird switched to this economic model over 20 years before it became internationally acceptable as the most sustainable economic approach. This was the economic genius of the man, with vision 20 years ahead of his path. This was not, however, the only path of VC Bird. Madam President, VC Bird understood and made it his fundamental political strategy of empowering his people through first quality education and good paying jobs. VC Bird felt and proved that these were the fundamental requirements for development of his people. Education improved earning potential, and a good income ensured that good housing, good health care, and enjoyable material base could be assessed. VC Bird also understood that social stability required upward mobility. Opportunities he wanted to create for all. He therefore focused on creating mobility opportunities for the poor, the less fortunate. School was free, healthcare free, and he did all in his power to create jobs through attraction of private investment. Madam President, another aspect of VC Bird's economic approach was in the area of attraction of private investment. From very early, VC Bird knew, as we all now know, of the vital importance of private investment and the need to earn hard currency. VC Bird was not constrained by his small island home in self-confidence and readiness to negotiate with the world. He knew that Antigua and Barbuda was independent and that his government and people ran the show. When others were nervous about the domination of investment or foreign governments and became hysterical of the phobia, VC Bird nailed down investment after investment. The local economy grew and our people develop socially,